right, the Yang Gang just scored a very large endorsement. Comedian Dave Chappelle, he's thrown his support behind the presidential hopeful.
We are back with Stephen Cobb, former Deputy Attorney General of Virginia, and Inez Stepman, Senior Policy Analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. So this is a pretty big get for Andrew Yang. I'm personally a huge Dave Chappelle fan. Mr. Chappelle, we would love to have you on to discuss why you decided to endorse Mr. Yang. Yeah. Andrew was on, what is it called, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night talking about this endorsement. Let's take a listen to that.
Oh, Dave's people reached out to my people. We got together for an hour plus and just really connected. He's a parent, I'm a parent. We both are really concerned about the way the country is going, and that we want to be able to do better and say to our kids, we did everything we could to actually leave a country we're proud of for them. So
in a campaign like this, I mean, how much does it matter to get these celebrity endorsers? This is a very well-known comedian with a large following. Is it a big bump for Andrew Yang?
Not at this point in the campaign, particularly for someone like Andrew Yang, who comes a little bit from what we'd say is outside the establishment of not being an elected, not being in Washington. You know, someone like that who could get him some extra particular social media attention in July or August and help build on that. But
that's an interesting point.
But 2.5 weeks out before Iowa, I'm not sure that endorsements like this at this point translate to votes.
It is interesting. You know, I read a New York Times article. This is right before Dave Chappelle announced for Yang, which basically talked about how there's all these celebrities in South Carolina, like Danny Glover for Bernie and like all these other people. And it was like, well, like, is this actually working? But part of the concern, Inez, is that people will show up, snap a selfie with Danny Glover, and then leave. Like, they're not necessarily there for the candidate themselves. So about the efficacy of this, I'm just not so sure. I mean, it's great to get media, but I mean, in terms of how much effect it has, I don't know.
So as a general rule, I think celebrities and celebrity endorsements hurt more than they help. I think generally, you know, this is the send Lena Dunham to North Carolina thing, right? Like that is not a good way to connect with voters. In this case, because he's running an unconventional campaign, because he doesn't have you know, the normal amount of coverage, because he got left out of this last debate. We can talk about the fact that Tom Steyer was up there probably instead of Andrew Yang.
Right.
He needs name recognition outside of his really dedicated Yang Gang, and Dave Chappelle has that. So I don't see this as a negative in any way, and I think it is a big positive. And I think it's interesting who endorsed him, right? Because Dave Chappelle also is, you know, somebody who's willing to take on a certain type of sort of SJW, intolerant identity politics left, and I think that helps Yang's crossover appeal. He's currently the only Democrat that I hear Republicans saying, like, well, we could live with this guy.
Yeah, but it's certainly not a negative. But
I would say Tulsi Gabbard falls in that category.
But I don't think at this point you're really not you're doing less persuasion, less meet and greets, introduction of the candidate than you are doing get out the vote, knowing who your caucus goers are, identifying your folks in New Hampshire, and getting your plan for that rollout. This is the last. This is the last
it is late in the game.
2 to 4 weeks.
It was commonly seen as, you know, a blow to his campaign that this late on, that he didn't make the debate stage. That was the first time that didn't happen. But I have to say, after watching that debate, I don't know that he really missed much. I actually tweeted out, like, oh, I'm sure he's so sad that he didn't get to be, like, smeared as a sexist, cut off repeatedly, accused of bankrupting the country, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't know how much these debates are moving anyone.
Well, it's also interesting. So the Yang announced yesterday he's going to do a 17-day bus tour with his wife across Iowa. Now, I'm very intrigued by that, Stephen, because it seemed like New Hampshire would be better ground for him. A, because 20% of the electorate there is independent, even crossover.
Well, it's primary, not caucus, too.
Primary, exactly. And when you have a caucus, you have to hit 15% in some of these precincts in order for your vote to even count, or your votes get disbanded. Why do you think he's going all in on Iowa? I mean, literally a 17-day bus tour in Iowa. Is it just to at least show that he could get something and establish himself as a power player, head into New Hampshire? What do you think the thesis is there in the calculus?
I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe his team has told him that he needs to reach a certain threshold in Iowa in order to still be credible in New Hampshire and South Carolina. So the concern is if he doesn't break 1% or whatever arbitrary number that his campaign has come up with in Iowa, they don't see the campaign lasting too long. But ultimately, I don't know. as a Democrat, I think it's great that you have someone going out there doing a 17-day bus tour and getting voters and caucus goers excited.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that all the campaigns are doing that, I think only is a good thing for the ultimate nominee.
I mean, I think it shows they believe they're playing to win. I mean, we had one of his supporters who runs a PAC that supports him on the show, and they believe very much that the people that they're drawing on aren't necessarily being polled, that they're going to outperform what the polls are saying right now. And so I think when you place a big bet on Iowa like that, it's like Stephen said, because you actually believe that if you can get to a certain threshold in Iowa, then that's going to inure to your benefit in New Hampshire and down the line. So I think if you're going to play to win, I think you have to go all in on Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a great track record with people skipping states, right? Skipping early states. Now,
Yeah,
again,
that's true.
Andrew Yang's campaign is not like anybody else's campaign. So but there, there is a certain air of giving up if you're just writing off entire early states that, and even though he isn't, among the top pollers, Andrew Yang does not like it when he's asked questions like, okay, well, what are you going to do when this is over? He doesn't want to talk about it that way. He does want to play to win.
Yeah.
And so I guess to that extent, what he's doing makes sense. He wants to be considered as a candidate that actually, has a shot. It's understandable he's not in the top 3, top 4, but we're still taking Amy Klobuchar way more seriously. The media's taking Amy Klobuchar way more seriously. And to be clear, I think that that's appropriate. This isn't completely narrowed down yet. Now, after these first 2 states, then maybe it's time to see where everybody's at and narrow it down.
Yeah, I think we're going to see
Unless you want Joe Biden.
I think we're going to see very quickly who the real contenders are. But he and his team and his supporters definitely believe still that they have a shot at winning, and he's playing the game as if that is the case. Certainly, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Tomorrow on Rising, the Office of National Drug Control Policy Director will join us to discuss the White House's latest efforts to combat the drug crisis.
And Bernie Sanders, Iowa State Director, is going to describe the center's organizing efforts on that critical state, as caucuses quickly approach. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.